Hey, this is Matt O'Leary, and today I'll be reviewing the 13th album from the metal gods of instrumental proficiency, Dream Theater, the Astonishing. A friend from high school and bandmate of mine was really obsessed with these guys for a time in high school, and he kind of gave me my first exposure to them. He gave me the CD Awake, and then the first album I sought out on my own was Octavarium, so that gives you kind of a reference for what kind of Dream Theater fan I am. And Dream Theater is a band that's had just a steady stream of really expansive records since their beginnings in the late 80s. Before the iconic progressive metal band, I don't know how much this band's really progressed. I mean, I go back to their beginning records like Images and Words, Awake, Falling into Infinity, and then I listened to, some of their recent records, like their self-titled, their last one in 2013. And really this band started and they were on the cutting edge of metal music, just doing things most people had never heard before. But recently they're really not so much on the cutting edge. They do in many ways have an extremely varied style, but on these recent records I think we've heard kind of their musical influences the most clearly. And on the Astonishing you really can hear a vast range of musical influences from 70s bands like Rush, King Crimson, all the way through the 80s and the 90s metal, and some more modern stuff. It really reminds me of a band like Enchant from the late 90s and early 2000s. But also on this album we do hear kind of bits and pieces of that electronic, machine-like sound that we typically associate with the future. And this represents the antagonist in the story called the Nomax. Overall, this is really Broadway, really musical theater, and it uses sort of that Western classical tradition and that vocabulary to convey emotion. A perfect example are those suspended and slowed down or retarded final notes that end really important narrative phrases. Bum, 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 bum. To give you some context and idea of this massive storyline and concept that John Petrucci wrote for this album, the story is set 300 years into the future. Stylistically, this future really feels like a 17th or 18th century Europe, with the imagery and the settings and kind of the architecture that's on the website, along with some of the characters' garb and their nomenclature. Annabelle, Darius, Evangeline, Xander. Music is no longer a form of free human expression, but rather just a function of artificial intelligence. These AI are the Nomax, and they're shaped like little spherical droids that are flying around in the sky, reminding me a lot of the little cute guy from the Portal games. Here's a dramatic quote straight from the website, giving you this idea. The very soul of what was once real music is now lost in a digital quagmire of emotionless sonic madness. Yep. And the protagonist Gabriel has this innate sort of gift of music that amazes and inspires people to join this uprising against the evil monarch, King Nefarious. Yeah, King Nefarious. We need an evil guy name. And there's even a love story of sorts between Faythe, who's Nefarious' daughter, of course, and Gabriel. It's got to be all tangled up like that. With 34 whopping tracks on this double album, I can't really cover them all, but I'm going to try to name a few notable ones. I think this is an album that most clearly displays Dream Theater's biggest strengths and flaws and kind of juxtaposes them at times. The first act is filled with a bunch of ballads and sort of character development like songs where they're just setting up the story, but there are some more aggressive tunes. 3 Days is one of those where Train of Thought comes to mind, and those sort of guitar tones come in. And this progressive and ever-changing song keeps shifting time really quickly, reminding me of the Dance of Eternity. The chorus is probably the most brutal moment of this first half. I really just enjoy Nefarious' musical themes whenever they surface. It also has some horn-driven kind of vaudeville sections that remind me a lot of the way Casey Crescenzo from The Deer Hunter sets up his act story. And a really killer blast beat at the end is an awesome moment. The lyrics, though, read a lot like a Disney movie. They're kind of on that same level of sophistication, if I'm being completely honest. And Act of Faith, that song where the music player comes in, that part is pretty cringeworthy. The song A Life Left Behind perhaps delivers the most ear-grabbing guitar riff, and this really isn't a guitar riff sort of album. It's more about familiar chord structures, but A Life Left Behind, I really like that one, especially the intro. On the second half, the song A Path Divides best matches the shifting character voices that James LaBrie does, and the fast tempos to sort of the emotional intensity of the song. This is really the climax in the story as Gabriel's brother, Aris, I think that's how you say it, dies at this moment. This really isn't an extensive story review, so I'm really skipping a lot, but the resolution of the story comes as all the people of the land gather and finally sing together in one moment, and it's accompanied by this violin part that really sets this imagery of freedom from oppression. And then we get what is almost the last song. I kind of wish it was the last song. Our New World, which is a triumphant anthem, if not a little cliche. This is an album that's so long and there's so much content that it's pretty difficult to summarize in such a short video, but it really is easy to follow if you read along with the lyrics and invest the 2+ hours that it takes to listen to this. It will be a rewarding experience, I think, once you get sort of the musical themes down, although the lyricism is pretty shallow at times. There's not much to it, there's not much depth there. When you're reading a book, you can get that level of depth, or if you're watching a movie, there's sort of that character development there, but it is lacking in this area, at least for what I'd expect from a huge concept like this. There is a whole lot to enjoy with this album. Jordan Rudess and Petrucci just continue to write beautiful music together. And just the sheer scope and complexity is a testament to their genius. The way they repeat motifs and themes throughout is really on par with any fantastic musical. And it all flows seamlessly with huge dynamic contrast. However, storytelling-wise, I think they bit off just way more than they could chew with this one. None of the themes run deeper than good versus evil, things like hope and belief, and bravery, all things that are pretty unoriginal ideas and part of this collective and distinctly American cultural consciousness. And this unoriginality leads me to my biggest criticism. This is a concept album that, very much like The Astonishing, occurs in the future, in the year 2112. And in this story, just like The Astonishing, music is no longer a form of free human expression. Rather, it's machine-driven, and a guy finds a guitar and brings it to the temples of Syrinx and changes everything with this new art. I don't know how they missed this one. It seems like Rush is a band they probably were influenced by. Maybe they knew it existed. But yeah, it's one of their bigger albums. It's a concept many rock fans know of. That being said, I'm going to give this thing a 7 overall just because I did enjoy it. There was a lot to love about it, but you know, a lot of elements I didn't enjoy. It did come off as a Disney movie a little bit, but with less of a compelling storyline. And now that I'm done reviewing it, I'm pretty excited to listen to something else. If you like Dream Theater's other concept albums like Scenes from a Memory or 6 Degrees of Inner Turbulence, those are better in my opinion, and this one is very different from those. Another thing, the No-Mac music is pretty awesome. I don't know why they wanted to get rid of it in the first place. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe to this channel. Comment on what you think about this album, and also check out down in the description box below my favorite songs and my least favorite from the album, along with my linked Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, yada yada, social media. See ya.